this rather snappy, won't you? I have some very heavy thinking to do before 10 o'clock.
Hey, welcome to another edition of Get It Right Texoma with the full trio here this time. Mike Hendren, Terry McAdams, Trey Serrala. Trey is back from his adventures in outer space. And
or maybe a little closer, but
Elon and
he was in a foreign area for sure.
Yes, I was, and I did not bring back any foreign objects for any wrestling fans.
Okay.
Remember the WWF when you were a little kid? He's got a foreign object he's pulling out of his pocket. No, I was in Europe for a couple of weeks, and I will tell you, I love visiting over there. It's a lot of fun. You see things over there you can't see here. You know, 1,000-year-old buildings and this and that and the other, but it also makes you appreciate home.
Yes.
Especially when you're traveling, and day to day, there was a few days, a few days we stayed in an Airbnb because we were kind of at one place, but most of the time it was traveling, hotel, and here you could stop at a Holiday Inn Express, $89 a night hotel. You're going to get a microwave, a refrigerator, an ice machine, this, that, and the other. No ice machine, no refrigerators. No air conditioners in most hotels, no elevators in some hotels. And I'm talking about a Radisson or a Holiday Inn, because over here, if you go to a chain hotel, chances are it's been built within the last 30 to 40 years.
ADA requirements.
Yeah, 30 to 40 years, and a lot of them are fairly new. Over there, it may be a 150, 200-year-old building that's been retrofitted.
Wow.
And it's a Holiday Inn, but it's somewhere, and there's either no elevator or the elevator was the old dumbwaiter shaft that they basically put a hydraulic platform in. So you stand in there and hit the button, and the walls you're in a shaft, and it just picks you up through the shaft there. It's interesting.
So, do you want to talk about your incident?
Yeah, we can as we get a little further on. Yeah,
okay.
But the Trump tariffs hit while I was there.
Oh,
so.
okay, all right, yeah. There, a lot of things have developed since then.
Oh, yeah, been a lot of
like
developed.
yesterday.
So,
Yeah. We try to focus on a locally owned restaurant every episode that we do here, and this time we're circling back to one of our favorites, and that's Deli Planet.
Yes.
Which is located on Shepherd Access Road.
right off the main gate of the base.
Burnett Road. Right by the main. You literally could throw a rock and almost hit the main gate at Shepherd. I wouldn't advise doing that because there are guys there with guns that might shoot at you.
Yeah, there's guys with M16s there that are guarding that gate.
So don't throw anything at the gate. Just, it's a figure of speech. Yes. Cops, don't do it.
There's
anyway.
one of our right there on the screen. One of our classmates. He went to school at the same time we did. Mike and I. He was a couple of years younger than us. Yep. But Eric's a Hershey grad, and he was at school the same time Mike and I were in school.
Yeah. And that's their website, and then we got their Facebook page. So if you go hook up to the internet.
I'm telling you, I've never had a better cheesesteak, and I've had cheesesteaks. I've had a cheesesteak in Philadelphia. I've never had a better cheesesteak than the Deli Philly at Deli Planet.
The best, huh?
There's the best I've had anywhere, and like I said, I've had cheesesteaks all over the country.
So there's one called the Wicked Chicken. That's one of my favorites.
Wicked Chicken.
Yep. And then there's another one. I'm trying to remember the name of it. It's go to the menu and I can tell you there.
So
let's see here. What we got
here? Starters, fries, and more.
Their burgers are really good.
Dressings and side items. Jeez.
Go to the hoagies.
Well, small baskets. There's a 4-inch hoagie. That's a
combo.
Okay. And we got just salads and wraps.
I think hoagies are over here.
Well, 8-inch. There we go.
There we go. Trying to remember the one that I get. And the cordon bleu, that's my wife's favorite. That's her favorite.
And then
where is it?
Mayhem.
The mayhem.
Not the mayhem. But the mayhem has
Mayhem.
turkey and ham, provolone cheese, mayo, lettuce, tomatoes, onion, hoagie dressing. What's hoagie dressing? And
it's oil. It's kind of oil and vinegar with some Italian seasonings.
They have a special dressing that they do.
Yeah.
And a pickle spear.
Yes.
I always say I'm going to try something different, but that Deli Philly, I just
kind of go right back to it every time. Yeah.
And the fries are really good. They're real thick steak fries or whatever. So Deli Planet, check them out. They're open. They're closed on Saturdays and Sundays.
Yes.
I think they're open 5 days a week, like from 11 to 7:30 or 11:30 to 7:30 or something along those lines.
11 to 7:30.
Yeah, I looked it up
exactly,
yesterday.
Yeah.
It's not that I memorize their.
Right.
They're
so they're not open on Saturdays and Sundays. because
Yep. Taking the weekends off.
there you go.
Weekends off and, that kind of deal.
But they a lot of their business involves a base. They're
And
right there by
lunch,
the base at lunchtime and dinner and stuff at the base.
Their actual address, you want to plug it into your GPS, it's 4014 Shepherd Access Road.
Yep.
It's really easy to get to.
Good
really
food,
fun.
good people.
Yes.
Check them out.
Indeed. The Deli Planet. Go get it. We're recording this episode on April the 10th. And
Yes,
for those of you that don't know, just a quick mention here, this is the 46th anniversary of Terrible Tuesday, or what's known officially as the Red River Valley tornado outbreak. On that particular day in 1979, there were tornadoes that struck Seymour, Texas, Vernon, Texas, Lawton, Oklahoma, and Wichita Falls. The Wichita Falls tornado actually stayed on the ground from the southwest corner of Wichita County all the way to Waurika, Oklahoma.
Yeah.
About 47, 48 miles or so.
And it was actually 3 tornadoes that combined
Yes.
as well.
It entered when it was entering the county, you had 3 vortices that combined into one. By the time it got to Southwest Parkway, I think it had already coalesced into one big funnel. And then as it was exiting the city, it broke up again.
Yeah.
And so it was, it was originally they thought it was an F5 on the Fujita scale. They actually rated it an F4 on the Fujita scale. That's what they downgraded it to. I think by the time it got to Waurika, it was down to like an F1, F2. But the worst of it hit Wichita Falls. Initially 46 dead, roughly 600 people were injured. Mm-hmm. About 20% of the town was left homeless by this. It basically flattened neighborhoods.
And it hit over by the mall on Southwest Parkway if you're from the Wichita Falls area.
Yeah.
The Southwest Parkway area, and so there's a lot of residential. Mm-hmm. There's not only the commercial, but they have a lot of residential over in that area as well.
The very first structure that was hit was Memorial Stadium. I think it tore the press box right off the stadium.
I think that's right.
Yeah.
And then McNeil Junior High School,
'cause it was right
which
there.
is right adjacent to the
Memorial
stadium.
Yeah, it got hit.
McNeil was flattened, but it so happened, number one, it hit at 6 o'clock in the evening, so students would have been gone. But we were on spring break that year.
Yeah.
During this time.
Yeah, that was fortunate.
And
there were people that were out of town, but not only that, there was not a whole bunch of kids at those schools because not only did, I think Jefferson got hit as well, Jefferson Elementary
yes, it did.
as well. So
it did. So,
Here's
this is
I've got the video up. I'm trying to find that photo. Yeah, there's one of the photos right there. Or the video.
Of course, Mike and I were not of driving age at the time, and neither one of us were involved. You and I, you lived closer to it than I did, but we were still on the other side of town. I lived completely on the other side of town.
Yeah.
And but we had friends that lived over, and their house was impacted. Mm-hmm. And my dad went over there for a couple of weeks afterwards, and he helped them replace windows, re-roof their house, and stuff like that. So I would go over there, and it was amazing to not have any landmarks. It's hard. You kind of always know where you were. And I always, even as a kid, I kind of paid attention to where I was when I was even riding in a car. I was pretty good about, I've been there before, I can get back there. But it was crazy with no landmarks and everything looked different.
Well, the very spookiest part of this for us is when it hit, I can tell you exactly where we were. I know exactly where we were. We were in my grandmother's living room, and the television was on. And those of you local people remember Bill Warren with KFDX. He was the weather guy back then. And Bill announced that there was a possible tornado on the ground on the southwest side of the city. Within a minute or two, the power goes out. We jump in the car and we drive 2 blocks down the street to my uncle's house because he had a cellar. And we get there and the whole neighborhood has shown up to his cellar. Seriously, we had like 40 people in the cellar.
Oh, wow.
I mean, it was elbow to elbow.
Yeah.
Around that thing.
In the Freddy hole.
Yes. And, of course, all the kids had to pee at the same time. And all that nice, made it really fun, But anyway, when we were leaving that evening, we were going to another family member's house to spend the night. Everybody was going over there because they had the room for everybody. And as we're driving through town, there's no lights.
Yeah.
No street lights, nothing. For a brief period, this city was plunged back into the 1850s. Mm-hmm. There was no electricity, no telephones, and no running water in many places. And even if you had running water, you couldn't use it because the power was down, so the water purification plant couldn't operate. Yeah, nope. So they had to issue a boil order on the water.
Yeah, you can flush a toilet.
But if you had pressure,
That's what I mean.
There
yeah.
were some places
the
in
pumps,
town that where the pumps went down and they lost all water pressure.
Yeah, we never did over by the base. We lost electricity, but not pressure.
Yeah, if you were too far uphill, I think it was the way it was. If you were too far uphill from wherever the delivery source was, you couldn't get water because the pressure just went away. And that's what happened with us is we had pressure, but it was a trickle, but you couldn't drink it. And back then, nobody used bottled water, but you had to. That was my first. That was my introduction to bottled water.
I didn't even know it existed back then.
That was my introduction to it. We got some. There was a Red Cross. I think it was Red Cross had set up kind of an emergency station thing, a few blocks away from our house. Oh yeah, I know where it was, in the Safeway parking lot. There on Loop 11. There was a Safeway store there, I think.
Right, backed up to the river.
Yes, and they were set up in the parking lot at the Safeway, and they were giving out bottles, big gallon bottles of water for people to drink. And that was the first time I didn't know bottled water existed until then. And one of kind of a funny story here, real quick. We of course, for at least the first 24 hours after the tornado, we had no electricity in the city, so everybody's using flashlights and candles and whatnot. And our flashlight batteries were given out. So I get in the car with my mom, and we drive to a convenience store a couple blocks away. And she goes in there, and this guy's trying to charge my mother $5 for two. Remember the Ever-Ready batteries, the silver ones with the cat on it, jumping through the 9 or whatever on the battery? Tried to charge her $5 for 2 batteries. I didn't realize my mother knew curse words like that. I did not know my mama knew language like that. And later on, I had to go back and look it up to even see what it meant. And it was not good. Yeah. But anyway.
Was it a Jiffy store that you went to?
It probably was a Jiffy store. Yes, because they were everywhere.
That was the precursor to 7-Elevens and Circle K's and that sort of stuff. It was Jiffy.
Yeah, there were probably 3 within a mile of our house.
Yeah, Jiffy convenience stores.
And but the guy he got called things that I didn't know people were. Anyway.
Well, here's a
graphic
of
the path.
From the path. I guess the red lines are the path of various tornadoes.
Right, on the ground.
Several of them.
So the one that's closest to that, the letters SPS there, that stands for Shepherd Post Station.
Yeah.
That's where the radar base was at the time. If that's the Wichita Falls tornado.
Right.
And the little blue dot that you see there across the Red River, that's Waurika.
Okay.
Yeah, that's Waurika.
So that's where it ended up stopping. But we actually had family members that didn't have a cellar and didn't have access to one, and they actually got under their house. They had a pier and beam home, and they got in the crawl space under the house, and that's where they wrote it out.
They never saw Wizard of Oz, did they?
I don't know.
The hell no, I ain't getting into no house.
They got under the house, man.
Well, April 26th of 1991 was a tornado up in Wichita, Kansas, and a buddy of mine that I worked with in the Air Force, he lived in base housing, and the back half of base housing, and none of those had basements. They were all 80s built, and they were foam and maybe a stud or 2 here and there. But anyway, his wife had worked the evening somewhere, but it was a Friday night, and he shows up. They see the tornado coming actually, and they go. Their friends are all standing there, so they go run in and seek shelter. Well, again, no underground shelter, so he hops in the bathtub with his dog and pillows. And I guess after the tornado went through, the other people in our shop that happened to live near him went looking for him, and they found him under a wall that collapsed on him underneath the bathtub.
Wow.
And he and his dog were under there. And
there were a lot of stories from yes, there were a lot of stories from 79 about where people were found alive in their houses. That room or that space was all that was left.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where they were, that closet or that bathroom or whatever, that's what was left.
Well, and then you go through the houses and the roof's off, but they have the nice china cabinet, and still stuff is just leaned up, just perfect.
There's all this
other
weird. It's weird.
Yeah.
Pressures.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. People that had 2-stroke engines on their dirt bikes and jet skis and things like that had debris sucked into the cylinder.
Yeah.
Because the 2-stroke doesn't have valves that close; it just has a port.
Yeah.
And it would actually pressurize and suck debris through the exhaust port into the cylinder.
Wow.
Yeah, people found they would open canned goods, after the fact. They were sealed canned goods, and there was dirt floating in the can.
Yeah, it's weird.
I had one guy tell me his dad there was a service station somewhere near Southwest Parkway and Fairway Boulevard in that area, and they had just closed down the shop, and they were trying to get out of there, and they actually wrote it out in the oil pit.
Bro,
They got down in the oil pit.
Yeah, where you change your oil.
Yeah. And
That'd be a good place. I mean, it's concrete.
in the original film Twister, there's a scene in there where a bunch of people ride out a tornado in such a pit.
Yeah. Right.
But anyway, his dad, he had a bottle, one of those glass bottles of Coca-Cola, and it was sitting on the counter in the shop. And of course, those old service stations had glass windows all around. All the glass was blown out. Walls are blown down. The counter's still sitting there. The Coke is still sitting there. It's unopened, and there's dirt floating on top of the soda in the bottle.
It's crazy.
I never even had a chance to break the seal on the bottle. Weird things happen when that barometric pressure drops suddenly
it's
like
all
that.
the pressures. Yeah, you just don't even.
Just weird stuff starts happening. That's how you end up with pieces of 2x4s going through a brick wall or something.
Exactly.
It's not just the speed, but also the expansion and contraction of everything because of the pressure. It does really weird stuff.
Changes a lot of molecular structure stuff.
Man, I don't know. All I know is that we have not been through one like that since then. I hope we never see another one again.
Absolutely, I'd rather never see one.
And trace theory is just based on what we see in the weather and so forth. The Tornado Alley has shifted north and east, and I think you're absolutely right.
It doesn't mean we can't have a tornado here. Don't get me wrong.
No.
But when we were kids, we were kind of prime location for Tornado Alley, and it has shifted north and east.
Well, there was one that hit the north side of Wichita Falls almost 15 years to the day prior to this one.
In the 60s.
April 3rd of 1964. That one was rated an F5.
It just didn't do nearly as much damage because there wasn't anything there.
No.
It hurt Kate Haynes Elementary.
Yes.
And a few of the houses and stuff that were over there, but it was mostly empty land. That area hadn't been developed
Now,
yet.
it did hit the Sunset Terrace neighborhood. I think 7 people were killed over there. There were quite a few injuries, but I think most of them were actually on the base. The base suffered millions of dollars in damage.
The base got hit.
I had a family member that was working there at the time, and they wrote it out in one of the big hangars where they were working on aircraft. And my uncle, it was one of my uncles, dude's tough as nails. He was a survivor of the Battle of the Bulge. So tornado, schmado, who cares? Big deal tornado. Yeah. But he was he was most angry over the fact that one of the planes that he had spent hours and hours and hours working on got totally trashed when it got sucked out of the hangar. He was like, I can't believe that. He said, the hours I had in that plane, I'm like, you could have been killed for crying out loud.
Yeah, here's we talked about the shift of Tornado Alley. They've got the statistics plotted from 1950 to 1984.
He's not as dumb as he looks, is he?
Yeah, and then from 85 to 2019, that's where most of them occurred. So that's an interesting.
It has actually shifted more east than north.
Yeah.
Right.
But it has shifted north some because we're right here. So.
So Ohio Valley and the Mississippi River Valley area, they seem to be kind of in the middle of it all now. So
when I moved to Wichita, Kansas, I was driving. We were on leave and headed to McConnell Air Force Base, and we were up on 35, and we were basically welcomed to Wichita with a really, really big storm. I don't know if that many tornadoes that time, but man, I'll tell you. So,
welcome to Kansas, Toto.
There you go.
Welcome to Kansas. Well, moving on here, the Highway 82 flyover is hopefully going to be named in honor of Ray Gonzalez. Ray served on our city council for a time, I think, didn't he?
He was also a county
commissioner. And he was
a military veteran.
Very active in the community.
Very active in the community.
Very active.
Super, super sweet man. I mean, very nice guy. Yeah. Had the Volkswagen repair dealer shop for a long time and everything. And his daughter Renee was the public information officer for the Wichita Falls ISD.
That's right, she was. Yes, she was.
She and I worked together when I was on the school board.
So it's going to be named in Ray's honor. Planning and zoning is.
I can't imagine they're hitting a hiccup.
I can't imagine that they will not approve this. Yeah. If they do, the sign designating it is going to be very close to the Volkswagen repair shop that he had.
Is this?
So that's.
Yeah, this is his obituary from. Is that him? No, that's not him.
That's not him?
So I was
Not
going to say he wasn't. He didn't look like him.
No, okay.
You
Wait a minute.
got the wrong Ray Gonzalez here.
Well, this one, I can't find a photo of him. That's why I was
Yeah,
trying to.
he died. I want to say probably in 2021.
I believe you're right. There's Ray.
Yeah, there's Ray right there.
Here, we get a little. Oh, if I can get the mouse to. Well, it's. But I have a little. Well, here.
Anyhow,
There,
the point
there we
is,
go.
yeah, there's Ray.
There's Ray.
But that's when he was. Yeah, that's when I probably was on the serving as a county commissioner.
Yeah.
But super nice person, good person, good all around person for the community, and this is a great honor, and he's well deserving of it. The nice thing is it has passed the Planning and Zoning Commission, and the City Council will take the proposal on May 6th.
Yes.
I can't imagine anybody's going to oppose it. And also that same day, Gonzalez will be honored in the Wichita County's Commissioners Court meeting at 10 a.m.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So that'll be quite an honor for him and his family.
With his family, yeah. So,
So, well, let's talk about the Trump tariffs for a minute, if we can.
Yeah.
So you had an encounter while you were away
I had a few, yeah.
over the Trump tariffs.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, were you under threat of being boiled in oil or something?
Well,
or what?
no, I never felt threatened.
Okay.
But no, my wife and I were actually in England when the tariffs hit, and the one night I was out parking the car, and apparently there was a couple of Canadians or something that, and I don't know how they knew she was from America. They must have asked her something because she sounds English, but they said something about your president doing that, and then I said, well, point them out, and I said I'll go have a conversation with them, but they were already gone from the bar when I got back in there. But I had a guy, English. I had 2 or 3 English people. They were, what is your president doing? And I said, look, this is a negotiation tactic. Mm-hmm. Stock market's going down. I said, yeah, it's going down right now. It's not going to go down forever.
No.
This is a negotiation tactic. And I actually have I have a family member by marriage who works for Ford in England, and a friend of mine who works for Ford as well. And they're concerned, and I told them both. I said, Donald Trump has got a big an ego as anybody you've ever known or ever even heard of, right?
Right.
The last thing he wants to do is ruin his legacy by just demolishing the country and the economy.
Right.
He's not going to tank the economy.
No.
Because if nothing else, his ego won't let him. Right. So I told all of them, I said, this is a negotiation tactic. He's going to get people to come to the table and negotiate. And lo and behold, a week later, what happens? In breaking news yesterday, they put a pause on the tariffs for 90 days, brought them all down to 10% except for China. And it's all because about 70 countries, they said, called to negotiate.
Yeah.
Well,
It's a chess game, guys.
yeah.
It's a chess game. And the fact
And
is
Trump's been about 3 moves ahead of everybody the whole time.
And we
in case you didn't know it.
have a big. He's got a big chessboard
He does.
because the American economy is not only strong. We have a huge consumer base. It has disposable income.
Right.
You go to a lot of places in the world. They may have a lot of people. They don't have the disposable income that we do.
Right. That's right. That's right.
China has more people. India has more people. They don't have. There are wealthy people there, but the average person does not have the disposable income that we do.
Yeah.
I traveled in Europe. I'm telling you, the way that we live compared to the way they live and the conveniences that we have.
That's right.
And I was telling my wife about this. It's kind of crazy. We went to several castles. I love going to castles. And I told her, you understand that the poorest people in America that live in a house, even in government housing, live in a better house than this castle. It's not as big, but they've got heating, they've got air, they have a roof that is sealed, they have walls, they have insulation. Those people, the richest people in the world at the time, had crappy houses to be in. I mean, they had big houses, they had no indoor toilets. No. Well, they had no indoor plumbing. They would go to the bathroom indoors, and then they had a chute that they would drop it out into the moat. They'd drop it basically out of the back of their tower.
Yeah. Yeah, those big. You see all those big castles and everything, and all those look so fabulous. No, they were
them.
cold. They were drafty. They were not
and-
damp. Yeah, damp. I mean, it was not a fun place to be necessarily.
It's better than living in a thatched hut. I guess is what it was.
Yes, it was, but nowhere near the creature comforts you enjoy today in a modern home.
No.
Nowhere close.
All right.
Yeah.
No.
Well,
So-
so now I will say, we did see a recovery a bit yesterday, but then I think we've got some people maybe taking profits or yesterday, I guess, which then,
Well,
so-
here's the thing, guys. The stock market.
that's a snapshot in time.
The stock market is a roller coaster. It's up, it's down, it's up, it's down. It's always been this way.
You didn't lose money until you sold. Unless you sold.
Unless you sold on a low point, you didn't lose a dime.
Right.
Okay, and this is what I've been telling people, guys. Be patient. Play the long game.
Well, now if you're
because most people are investing for a long period
longer
of time.
period.
You're betting on the long game anyway.
right, but
just hold the
if
line.
you're 30 or 40 or 50, even you've got normally you're fine. You've got time to ride it out, so don't panic on it. But the truth is, if you've heard the term dollar cost averaging, so basically you buy the up and down. If you're dollar cost averaging, investing in on a regular basis, the up and down of the market actually is better for you. Because when it's high, you're protected from buying extra, more. You're not buying a certain number of shares; you're just buying a certain amount, and so you're buying fewer of them for the same amount. And then when it goes low, you're buying more. And then when it goes back up, now you've taken advantage of that. Versus if it just was a steady climb.
That's why they've got the price of oil globally pegged to the dollar. When you trade oil futures, you're trading in U.S. dollars.
Yeah.
Right.
So when our dollar is depressed, it's better for those foreign buyers who are buying these futures contracts. They can buy more. And this is the thing. They don't ever take delivery on any of that oil, by the way. They're buying futures contracts. They're not actually taking delivery
they're
on it.
stored for you.
It's paper being traded.
Well, remember that when oil went for a very short amount of time went negative on the
Yes.
you had to pay to store it.
Yes.
Because there was
Well, but the other side of that is back in 2008 it went to $147, $48 a barrel.
it's just the nature of the beast.
And you had one of the things I'll never forget was T. Boone Pickens sitting on MSNBC back then talking about how it's just inevitable. It's going to $300 a barrel, and gas is going to be $10 a gallon. That kind of stuff. And I'm screaming at the TV, "Shut up!
Yeah.
You irresponsible oaf! Shut up! You know better than this. You're a professional, and you've made your fortune in the oil markets, and you know damn good and well that the current price is not sustainable.
Right.
At $300 a barrel, you're damn sure going to crash the market.
People would quit driving.
Yeah,
They would find alternative means. Everybody buy scooters. Wait a minute. Hey, everybody go to motorcycles and scooters. No.
There you go.
Well, now, but
You did sell a lot of scooters in that era.
We sold a lot of scooters, a lot of motorcycles. I mean, we ran completely out of motorcycles. I can remember a time when you'd be talking to a customer and you'd say, "Yeah, I've got this like that," and somebody walk by and grab it and go, "I just sold this one." You're like, and it wasn't like somebody wouldn't come in and go, "Hey, I want a da-da-da." They come in and go, "What do you have?"
Yeah.
Motorcycle.
Yeah.
I will say a lot of it, I think, was a good excuse to buy a motorcycle because that oil prices weren't going to stay that high.
No. It was not sustainable, and they knew that. A lot of illegal immigrants are voluntarily getting out of the country now.
We're seeing
self-deporting themselves, which, it's about time, Trump, and now Trump is threatening, was it like $900 some odd a day in fines if you stay in the country illegally or whatever? Like we're ever going to collect it, but still, putting a price on that. You want to stay here? That's going to cost you.
Yeah. Well, I'm all for the deportation. And by the way, all of the fears that people were they were going to be deporting American citizens, I have not heard of a story of that. I know that there's some people. There's like this one guy was said that he was a gang member, but he was just a father of whatever, but he was still here illegally.
Right.
I have not heard any stories, any legitimate stories about a U.S. citizen being deported. Have you?
Well, let's see.
There was one guy that got caught up in a sweep out on the East Coast, and he was sent to that El Salvadorian prison. And it turns out that his arrest by ICE was due to a clerical error. And they're actually working on getting him back into the country.
But he's illegal. He was illegal though, wasn't he?
He is illegal, and they're gonna.
So you're still breaking. I mean, you maybe it was a little extreme, but you were still breaking the law.
Well, he shouldn't have been deported as part of the gang sweep.
Exactly.
And I think it's what he got caught up.
Yeah, I
in
understand
for
that.
some reason. And so they're trying to get him back, I think, into the country, and then they're going to process him back out again. But he's going to go
just as an illegal alien,
yeah,
but
not as a criminal alien.
Right.
And that's the thing is the criminal thing. That's where the error took place. So anyway, guys, this had to happen. We had people into some very bad people that had found their way into this country, very violent gang members, people who had been charged with rapes and murders and sexual crimes involving children, for God's sakes, that had found their way into our country and were living here illegally in our country. These people have got to be rounded up and thrown out of here or thrown into jail. I mean, I'm all for locking them up somewhere, especially the ones that have committed crimes against children. For God's sakes, don't let them run loose. But if the prescribed remedy there is we just deport them from the country, then fine. But let's make damn sure they stay out this time.
That's the biggest thing.
Let's make damn sure they stay out.
And we can see that illegal border crossings have dropped dramatically.
Oh, very
They're not
much.
going to ever go away. We get that. No. There was never zero illegal border crossings. No. But the difference was in the past there were people that were illegal that came over here mostly from Mexico. Yeah. And they came over here and lived with somebody. They knew somebody here.
Yes.
They didn't just show up with nothing.
Yeah, they had a
connection. They showed up, they had a connection for a job, they had a connection for a house, they had a connection to be here.
Yeah, right, sure.
By the way, when we stop some of this, it will be better for Mexico as well.
Oh, yeah.
Because Mexico gets inundated with these people from Honduras and Guatemala and that sort of thing that come through Mexico and use their resources there and their limited resources and that sort of thing as well. So by stopping this border crisis, it will not only be good for the United States, it'll also be good for Mexico.
Mexico needs to get a handle on their government overall.
And it's a sad reality about it that people are going to get snared up in when you're doing this, and people are going to make mistakes. And quite honestly, though, I think that those people should if all of it turns out that they should not have been deported, then I think there should be some amount of compensation. I'm not talking about crazy.
Well,
but it's saying now, by the way, I found an article that's saying that the Washington Post, and whether this is true or not, that there have been 7 citizens that have been caught up in that.
It said detained, though.
Well, detained, let's see, across the border, including children, have been detained by federal. In some cases, were detained despite showing identification. But anyway, even then, being harassed for that when you're truly
I agree. If you're a citizen, I agree. I agree. But
if you're a citizen.
But the fact is, and there maybe it should be some compensation, but it does happen. I mean, it happens. People that are citizens get harassed by police officers. Sometimes it happens all over the country.
Right. We're talking about
there's most police officers are good people. There's a few bad cops out there who harass people.
Yeah. You're talking about a fraction of the number of the people that have been.
But if it's 7, but it doesn't say. I didn't see anything that said deported. They said detained. Yeah. There's a difference.
Well, no.
And I'm not saying it's good. I'm not saying it's right. But it's like it goes back to that. You can't say we're not going to do anything because something bad may happen to an individual.
Exactly. It's just an imperfect system with imperfect people.
Yeah, it is.
So,
and as long as they're committed to fixing it and fixing it quickly,
amen, brother.
That's the most important thing.
Before we wrap up here, it's worth mentioning that Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton
launched yesterday.
Himself has been wrapped up in some pretty serious stuff.
He went through a trial.
He did. He did. But he is mounting a challenge against Senator John Cornyn. I am not a John Cornyn fan, and I have not been a John Cornyn fan in a long time. And I think Cornyn, frankly, if anybody's a rhino in the Senate, it's John Cornyn. He and Mitch McConnell. Good grief.
And John Cornyn was pretty close to becoming the speaker. The leader.
Yes, I know. But Senator Cornyn is going to be challenged by Ken Paxton. We'll see where this goes. I mean, he's got to win a primary against him first.
I think this possibly. My guess is this is going to be the most expensive election in the history of the world.
It's going to be
history of the country.
It's going to be it's certainly going to be the most expensive Senate election.
Yeah, it may not be. The presidential election may be more expensive, but I think, other than a presidential election, I think this is going to be the most expensive election.
Oh, speaking of presidents, I got to share this with you real quick. I'm sitting there watching. So we do streaming TV in my house. We don't have satellite. We don't have cable. We do streaming television. I'm sitting there watching a show last night on some like Up TV or something like that.
By the way, Up TV is pretty good.
And
Westerns.
And this ad comes on. And I'm like, this sounds like they're talking about, Trump running for president and Biden and how both of their negatives, and then the only clear choice is Nikki Haley, and I'm like, what? It was a Nikki Haley presidential campaign ad.
Wow.
Left over from last fall.
Yeah.
No doubt. Okay, obviously. Somehow it got plugged into the rotation and never got pulled out.
That
and
never
ended up
happened
airing.
at the radio station.
No, never.
I wonder if they're still charging her.
I don't know. Here's the thing, though. It's not exactly, I don't know if it's illegal, but it's not exactly legal. You're running a campaign ad for an election that's already happened.
But isn't there something about isn't there a campaign season too?
There is.
There dates, so maybe
there is. This ad should have been pulled out of rotation. It wasn't. Somehow it got in there. Hopefully, a human being was monitoring that has something to do with that network or that service that feeds that ad. And it didn't necessarily come from Up TV. It could have come from any number of sources that feed ads to that channel.
Nikki Haley is thinking about running for 2028. And she's trying to run her old ads, paying for her old ads. I'm just kidding. I'm BSing. I don't believe this. But just think about it. That'd be crazy like a fox. I'm going to get my name out there now.
That would be. Yeah.
But I don't believe that's the case.
Yeah, and let's do it on Up TV.
Yeah.
I
You got
just
0.0001% of the.
all I know is this is I saw it and I was like, you got to be kidding me, man. They're running a Nikki Haley ad. And I wanted to record it on my phone, but I couldn't get my phone on fast enough to record it because it was a 30-second ad. But it was like, good grief, man, this is crazy. A campaign ad. The election's been over for how many months now? 6?
Yeah, since November.
Since November. Come on. Anyway, guys, we're going to wrap it up here. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Get It Right Texoma, brought to you by Eddie Hills Fun Cycles, located at 401 North Scott in downtown Wichita Falls. Been there since 1966.
New robo mowers are in, and we've got them set up. So if you want a demonstration, come by the store. We've got one set up outside, and you can kind of see how it works.
You still got Hustler mowers too, right?
Still have Hustler mowers as well, yeah.
All right. And motorcycles, and side-by-sides, and helmets, and jackets, and chrome, and great service department.
Great service.
They do it all.
And a fast boat up on the wall.
Yes.
That's right. Fast car. You got a fast car. We got a faster one.
Oh, is it a boat or a boat?
Both of them are there.
Okay,
They're both there.
We have a boat and a car.
Yeah, they're both there. So, 401 North Scott, downtown Wichita Falls, EddieHillsFunCycles.com. We record the podcast here in the Mac Tech Solutions podcast studio. Mac Tech Solutions, your authorized Apple service provider and Apple authorized
service provider. You'll get it right.
Authorized
someday.
service provider and
Apple authorized reseller.
And reseller.
Yes.
All that. They're Apple.
And he's my marketing guy.
They're fully Apple
Apple
authorized. Just a lot to say it all. It is, I swear to God. All things Apple here, damn it, right here. This is it. 4020 Ray Road, Suite 3B at Wichita Falls. Get them online at mactech-solutions.com. And also brought to you by Lolly and Pop Sweet Shop, LOLLIE Pops, Lolly and Pop Sweet Shop on Facebook, and find us online at lpsweet.com. Products now available at Country Bloom and Gibson Boutique at the intersection of Daniels Road and Highway 240 and Burt Burnett, and hopefully more announcements on other retail outlets coming soon for our products as well. But you can find us online again, lpsweet.com.
And go to our website, getitrighttexoma.com, and of course, like our page, our Facebook page, and our YouTube. You're watching it on YouTube.
Yeah, subscribe to the YouTube page if you haven't already done that.
And share it. That's the main thing. That's how we grow this is through you.
Word of mouth.
Yep.
That's
word
right.
Of mouth, and we
Share
need
it.
your help. And so we appreciate y'all watching and all that good stuff.
Once you get hooked, there is no cure.
There you go.
All right, guys. Thank you for joining us. Take care. Until next time, we shall see you down the road.